Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the series premiere of 30 Coins. This was a back-to-back episode situation. I'm watching these episodes one at a time. So first off, I'm going to start off with episode 1, and then I'm going to share my thoughts about episode 2. If you want to, you can check the time codes. I will, so you can jump straight to hearing my thoughts about episode 2. But first and foremost, let's talk about episode 1. Great episode, a lot of really interesting things. Holy crap, I figured this show was going to be wild. I didn't expect it to be this crazy, this wild, and all this shit going down just in the first episode alone. To be fair, it was almost like, almost like an hour and 20-minute episode or something like that. There's a lot to break down. You have that opening where the home dude's just taking every bullet he can, killing everybody, except for that one lady that came out the elevator. He's like, I'm going to let you live. I guess it's more so like I'm killing everyone that would stop me. It's more so than anything. If you're opposition, I'm going to stop you. If you're just going about your day, it's fine. You can do whatever you want. Obviously, main thing he's going after is a coin. But the moment he gets outside, that necklace gets taken off of him and he dies. So I'm assuming he was already dead and he was just basically the reason why the bullets didn't slow him down is because I'm assuming because he died afterwards, he was already like a reanimated corpse. So maybe maybe it's like that thing turns you into like a zombie for like a little bit. Maybe it's kind of like a full-blown, maybe they instill it with a certain mission, like you have to accomplish this, and it's like, okay, it will do whatever it needs to accomplish that mission. What's interesting though, it seemed like it was a priest, so it's like, okay, so the church is involved in trying to collect these coins, but then it's like, well, what we learn about Manuel this episode makes me think like, okay, so either he's with the church, either this is some rogue faction of the church that's trying to collect these coins, or it's just the church in general. Maybe these are like his top level people. Manuel might be a part of this organization, but maybe he was kept separately, or maybe he is doing his own thing. Just because, obviously, it seems like he's been pushed away at least a little bit from the church just because of everything that went down with him killing that kid during the exorcism and everything. So I don't know whether Manuel is just doing his own thing or whether he's secretly with the church, but the church kind of denounces him publicly and being like, oh, I don't know. Still a lot in that regard. So that's not even just the crazy part. Zombie dude taking bullets, stealing a coin. Oh, there's a cow giving birth to a baby. You're like, what? Oh, you mean like a cow, a calf, right? No, a human baby. I was like, wait, what am I watching? What is this? It's just like, and it goes there from there. I talked about it during my watch list, but the actor who plays Paco the mayor is the actor who plays Lito from Sensei. I was like, Lito. But he's the mayor, and basically he gets told and showed the video of that whole thing. And obviously, at first, everyone's thinking like, well, at least he is, because it's like, all right, let's go see Father Manuel about this whole thing. He's the first one to be like, oh, it's got to be a prank. Someone switched the baby with the calf while she was away. But it's like, obviously there were other witnesses, but it's just because at the time the camera looked away from the cow long enough for someone to be doing a switcheroo, because obviously, Elena went to go close the door, but it's like, okay, so now but obviously Manuel's the one explaining like, oh, this has to be Faye, and you have, Paco believing me like, yeah, I figured as much. It's like, thankfully you're rational about this father and everything but obviously for Elena, it's like, no, I know what I saw. This baby literally came out that cow. It's like, this doesn't make any sense. Till then, you have Carmen and her husband taking care of the baby. Obviously, Pablo being the mayor, obviously there's an election. It's an election year, and he's trying to keep things from going too crazy in town because it's like he doesn't want anything to jeopardize his potential, I guess, re-election. I'm under the assumption of. So for him, it's like he doesn't want all this negative publicity going towards the town. That's why he's like, don't put anything on Instagram or anything. And the dude's like, what about Facebook? He's like, no, not Facebook either. Just don't put anything online. It was interesting getting introduced to Manuel through that whole situation too, because we see him boxing. I'm like, oh, just not your everyday priest. That kind of seemed for sure, but definitely in that regard. But obviously, Elena's the only one that kind of seems like, yeah, there's something off and weird about this situation, but no one else is really paying it any attention. And eventually, even Paco's wife starts thinking like this is all a stunt, because obviously Paco starts looking into Manuel and ends up finding out well, this is after everything that went down with, what was it? Was it Antonio? That whole thing. Like, obviously, he was told to keep an eye on Manuel. Manuel has, like, a trunk full of weapons. Full of stuff. And then, like, there's that little stash away. He even said, like, oh, I was pretty tight with the previous priest's father that was here. Apparently, you know, later on, he ends up taking the baby. And he's holding the baby over the edge of the church and everything with, like, one hand. You're like, whoa. I was legitimately expecting him to drop the baby. Luckily, Elena was able to kind of talk him down. But he said, like, everything I'm doing is for your sins. And that got Paco looking into, you know, Manuel's life about the kid he ended up killing during the exorcism. And it's like, and I guess his sin was that he killed that kid in the process. But it's like, you think what started that day is over. It's like, no, it's still going on. You might want to try and run from it. And that's what you've done. You've tried to run from it, but it's followed you no matter where you go, you know. So obviously, Elena and Paco both keep secrets because Paco found the book that Antonio was reciting. He was actually reciting an exorcism because he was like, this baby isn't right. It isn't natural. It's demonic. Other people were saying it was demonic, but others, in particular Carmen, was saying it was a miracle. We kind of find out later on why she thought it was a miracle, because her and her husband lost their son. It was an accident where he accidentally drowned in their pool, and she looked at this as a sign from God, like, oh, God said it wasn't our fault and gave us a second chance, you know? So that's what she looks at the situation as. Sadly, it was purely demonic, but we'll get to that in a second. But going back to what I was saying earlier, I'm sorry, I'm a little all over the place, but Paco's wife is the one convinced him. It's like, yeah, this is a sham, that basically Manuel set this whole thing up so he can come off looking like a hero, so he can look better in front of the church to be like, oh yeah, look what I did. There was a problem here. I solved it. Let me be back in your good graces. Obviously, Paco had his reservations, but he started buying into it to the point, like, the police show up later on to question Manuel about everything. Luckily, he was able to just be let go later on. Elena stops by and talks to Carmen's husband, and it's like, yeah, just things aren't right. They go check on the baby. Lo and behold, the baby's a full-grown man. Not a full-grown man as in a giant man baby, in the sense that it's a baby the size of a full-grown man. You're like, what? It's like, once again, I knew the show would be weird, but I'm like, what the literal fuck? This is beyond where I thought we were going to go with this. And Carmen's just acting like it's natural. It's like, oh, she's not in the right state of mind. It's like, is this possession? I mean, it seems like it is. Then later on, she's like, the moment, because earlier she had her little sewing needles or whatever. She had pointed one at Elena, like, oh, this is my baby, you're not taking it. And was like, oh. And then later on, she used said thing to stab her husband, because it's like, oh, you're getting in the way, like, this baby is ours. She had walked in with blood all over her hands, talking about, oh, I'm preparing liver. The baby needs to eat a lot. And, like, she stabbed her husband multiple times. Obviously, Elena's trying to tell Paco something the hell is wrong. Like, I saw the baby and everything, but he was thinking she's just crazy, so wants to drop her off to her place. Oh, wait, there's people outside. Damn it. They're going to reckon that it's not going to look good, me coming out of your house. Because also, like, Elena kind of has a complicated thing herself, because obviously, which I should circle back, that father was kind of an asshole, or not kind of an asshole, straight up an asshole, where he was getting pissed at, you know, his daughter and wife, because, like, so much was going down underneath his house. It's like under his roof, and he didn't know about it. It's like, because obviously they were trying to figure out whether or not, like, some teenager nearby is, like, pregnant, and faked that whole thing just so they could kind of secretly get rid of the baby. And the teen they ended up visiting was already pregnant, but she was just hiding it. And so it definitely wasn't her baby. But obviously he started choking out Paco and everything. Like, you know, because Paco was telling him to calm down. Home dude didn't want to calm down. So that was a whole thing. Nevertheless, getting back to the point I was trying to make was the fact is that Paco is, you know, trying to look out for his image. And it's like, because of, right, what I was bringing up was, like, the fact is Elena's husband had disappeared, and Elena was like, I have no idea why he just up and disappeared. There's no trace of him. The police just kind of laughed in my face because they're assuming either he cheated on me and was having an affair, or I did. So home dude threw it in her face. Like, so it's a thing, like, I mean, it looks like it's a small town, so everybody knows everybody. So her business is super out there. Hence why home dude, that father, was super pissed and threw it in her face. about her husband and everything. It's like, oh yeah, like, you want to be all up in my business. What about focus on your own business? Where's your husband at, huh? Well, you don't know, do you? You know, which is like such a shitty thing. But it's because everyone's under the assumption he left. Either he skipped because she cheated or he did, you know, so they don't think of it as like, oh, he could potentially be somewhere dead. So it makes you wonder, are those circumstances going to be connected to this in any shape or form? We'll ultimately have to wait and see. But Paco was worried about, you know, it's like, oh, rumors might start if I show up, me, a married man, at a woman's place, especially this Elena's place, when it's considering like, oh, some of the rumors are suggesting that maybe she cheated on her husband. It might start suggesting like, oh, this might have been an affair. He's already kind of sneaking around his wife, hanging out with her. Obviously, you can tell his wife's not a fan of Elena. I guess she's already got like some suspicions just because of probably all the stuff said about Elena, and like, oh, all of a sudden my husband's spending so much time with you. Looks a little suspect, I'm sure, from her perspective, especially when he sneaks out and doesn't say anything in the middle of the night after Elena was throwing rocks at your window like this was like some, well, 80s or 90s rom-com. But nevertheless, she convinces Paco to go check in on Carmen and her husband, and he's reluctant, like, you know, but then they go and it's like, oh, literally like wool spider webbed like all over the place, and then Carmen's husband's like cocooned upside down, well, his corpse is. Then like Carmen stabs Paco with the scissors, attacks them all, even kicks Elena down the damn stairs. You're like, Jesus. And then she asks Paco, Elena's trying to run away, but then like the officers show up with Miguel. Obviously, I guess in this universe, like, possession gives you superhuman strength. Granted, we saw that early at the beginning of the episode, but we're seeing it now as well, as she's tossing people back like it's nothing. Part of me wonders, is there something unnatural about Miguel as well? Because at one point in time, it seemed like he had a level of superhuman strength as well. So I'm like, is he powered by God, or is there like something like evil connected to it? I don't know, because obviously we got a little dabble into like his past, like, you know, the kid who ended up dying from the exorcism, but obviously like the kid had like pushed a coin from underneath his skin, and the way the demons talk, well, Carmen's talking about it later, is that basically that coin came up from hell. So I'm assuming it's a different circumstances than what happened at the beginning of the episode. Like, I guess like, when you pull something up from hell like that from you, it takes your entire life force, you know, I don't know. I guess like human bodies are used as vessels to transport whether it's demon souls or, you know, maybe what those coins represent. I mean, granted, those coins are connected to like, as we can see, I think those are the, oh yeah, right, because those are the, like the 30 the 30 pieces of silver Judas got for betraying Jesus, right? I mean, that's what the opening is, which is so interesting because obviously, like, the 30 pieces of silver, like, there was obviously, like, most recently the thing I saw with that was, because I rewatched season 3 of Chilling Adventures Sabrina, which had a storyline element connected to that. Regardless, going on a tangent, I'm not well versed in Bible stuff, so this is all going to be like, oh, so that's what that is to me on certain regards, but, so, nevertheless, obviously, this is, like I said, like we saw the opening credits, and obviously that kind of, I guess, fills us in to a certain extent. I'm sure the show will do a better job of fully, you know, explaining the ins and outs of the whole circumstances. But, like, it's just, there's so much getting thrown at you this episode that you're, like, not really sure. Because at first, it's like the mom was controlling the monster with that, makeshift thing, and I was like, oh, is this kind of like a voodoo thing? And the way it's kind of referred to later on as kind of a charm, but it was almost like a voodoo. It's like she could kind of control it. It seems like the creature has its own free will, but it also seems like you can also control. I guess that's what it's mainly meant to do, is control the creature. So it has its own free will, but you can also kind of push it in a certain way. I think you like whisper into the thing's ear to kind of tell it what to do. Regardless. Yeah, so now it's in this interesting situation where, like, Manuel is constantly, like, denying everything, being like, this isn't what's really going down. You're not possessed, you're sick, Carmen. It's like, you know what's really going on, but it's like, why are you not? Is it because you truly don't believe? Do you think that if you stop believing long enough, then maybe none of this will really happen? I mean, once again, because Antonio had told him, like, you can try or you might, but they're coming after you because they're obviously after the coin, which he's kept all this time. Because they had said that was like a year ago, him, like, that failed exorcism was like a year ago. obviously it still haunts Manuel, like, because it makes you, I'm curious to dive into his past and find out more about him, like, where did this all start for him? I doubt that was his first exorcism. Maybe he's done others, like, because obviously there's also the question of in between then and now, like, what happened to him? Because obviously he kind of got sent to this town. Like, did he do that himself, or was the church sending him there to kind of disappear? It's like, this is kind of a town in the middle of nowhere. No one's going to recognize. Well, they might recognize you from the internet, but they, you know, you're just kind of you're out of the way. It doesn't stain the church as a whole. Once again, I feel like he's there on orders from the church, but it's like, it seems like they're collecting the coin, so why would they let him keep it? Not unless he didn't tell anyone about the coin. So I don't know. Maybe it's kind of hinting that maybe the church has got its own agenda with the coins, that they're doing their own thing, where it's like maybe they feel like this is their holy mission. Maybe they think they're saving the world, protecting the world while collecting the coins, and kind of comes off a little like, oh, you're doing that, but you're actually doing it for your own greed and self and power. You don't want it to fall in other people's hands because you're the righteous hands to keep it in. Once again, pure speculation I'm throwing out here. But regardless, Carmen got shot. Seemed like she was dead. Side note, she was beating the shit out of Manuel. Like, he was fighting back a little bit, but it's like, nah, she got on top of him, put them hands to his face, and it's like, jeez. But she's dead, or at least seemed dead. Paco, super messed up, gets sent through the ambulance alone, being transported along with her body. She wakes up, summons the creature, it attacks the ambulance. I was so certain his wife was dead, just like there was so much blood and everything. I was like, oh, please. I was like, that sucks. Oh, but she's alive. He's trying to call Carmen he's trying to call Elena to warn her. Obviously, you know, she's with Manuel. They're at the church and everything. He's getting locked and loaded, going up against Carmen. He ends up dipping. He drops the bullets in some holy water, locks and loaded. I was like, that's interesting way to purify those bullets. I wasn't expecting us to go like, I don't know what you'd call it. I guess, I don't know. I didn't expect this level of exorcism. Like, I figured this would be a little exorcist-esque. But I didn't expect us to full blown go like, oh, once again, this ain't your exorcist priest. This is kind of a different kind of priest in his own right. I don't know how to explain. I just didn't see a priest strapped and shooting someone with holy bullets. I'm like, what are we hunting, werewolves? You know, it seemed more like a monster hunt. Well, I'm more of a monster hunter than like exercising a priest that exercises. It seemed different, and I thought that was so interesting. You know, it's like, are you afraid to die? It's like Carmen is, but I'm not, because seems like it's the exact demon he was dealing with. It's like, because it's like, oh yeah, it was you. I was in the same room with you that time, you know, when that kid. So it's like, this is the same thing that was possessing him. It's come back now. I'm curious, like, how the possession works. Like, is there a way to fully exorcise demons? Like, what he did, it's because she was like, you're going to kill this body, you're going to kill Carmen, it's not going to affect me. So it's like, what happens to demons in his universe, you know, because it's like, it's kind of like, you know, most recent thing I watched with exorcism and stuff like that is Hellstrom, that basically when you exorcise something, basically you're sending it back to hell. You don't necessarily kill it. So I'm curious, were those holy bullets enough to kill it, or was it just like oh no, I'm just going back to hell, but I'll resurface, there's nothing keeping me, or am I just free out and about and I'm just going to find a different body to possess? We don't know. I love that the entire time he's dealing with the Carmen thing, we have Elena just being attacked. I'm like, oh, he literally did nothing with that. Like, what was the plan? Were you just so preoccupied with the Carmen thing that you didn't realize what was going down? Or were you just going to be like, okay, like if she ends up getting killed, she ends up getting killed. I don't know what to really expect from that. Luckily, Paco was like, destroy the charm. Luckily, she did. Didn't kill the thing. The thing's still out there. It's just no longer under anyone's control, which might be worse because that thing is just going to be out there doing its own thing, just killing people. Obviously, they want the coin. And obviously, once again, Manuel being like, yeah, oh my God, Carmen, no, like those were rubber bullets. She, you know, sometimes when someone's so sick, you have to play into the delusion. So it's like, I pretend, you know, for her to believe they were holy bullets, and, you know, and so, yeah, she's actually fine. I'm like, why? I guess it makes sense, because if you lie about it, you tell people the truth, I guess you just don't want more people to get dragged into this. But also it's like, yeah, I'll take that coin. It's just driving you and everyone crazy. And, Elena's like, I thought you said it was just a piece of metal. So she still has a coin, which obviously that's just going to make her more of a target. So now Manuel's just kind of like, well, just sitting at the end, kind of probably like, oh shit, that didn't go the way I thought it would. I don't know whether he just truly believed he could escape everything, that maybe he was someone that was kind of a believer but non-believer in the sense that like, believes in demonic possession and stuff like that, but it changed his worldview. It opened his eyes to something he wasn't prepared for. It might have done something to his own faith and beliefs. And, maybe he isn't the same man he was, when everything went down beforehand. So maybe a lot's changed, because like even the creature was saying like, oh, you think just by not believing it's fine? It's like, no, it's not going to stop us from coming after you. So, look, it's really interesting. Like I said, there's a lot of moving parts to this, and I'm curious to see where all this goes. Obviously, once again, I'm watching these one at a time, so this is kind of my thoughts for episode 1. I'm very interested to see what goes down in episode 2, and so here are my thoughts about episode 2. And now moving on to episode 2 of 30 Coins. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Okay, so confirmation in certain regards in this episode, because obviously we got that opening situation where it's like, oh, your eminence, yeah, we heard about, Manuel's situation. Is like, well, now it proves that he's that he's not with them, but he isn't with us either. But it is a situation where it's like, because I was wondering, like, if they know he has to, like, the church can't know that he has a coin, because if they did, wouldn't they want it? But it's like they want him to give it willingly. Maybe the coin has to be given over willingly, like unless it gets passed on willingly, it doesn't count. Or maybe it's meant to be more a thing of, we want him on our side, and so by giving it to us willingly, he'll give in to us. And because currently maybe he's fighting us and fighting the other side as well. It's like maybe he's kind of in his own lane right now. We don't know. Obviously, Elena and Paco, more so Elena, it's kind of going a little crazy from this situation, because obviously it's like, Carmen, and because no one knows what happened to Carmen. I don't think. I mean, at least her husband's dead. I don't know if they ever said exactly what happened to Carmen. It's like, oh, what about the baby? They're just chalking it up that the baby's gone and buried in a well somewhere or something like that. So that's as far as that's going. So obviously Elena and Paco are trying to like move on with their lives and stuff like that, pretend like everything's normal, everything's fine. A lot easier said than done. But then obviously things continue to get weird. Like Richie and his friends went and had a seance. And the name of the kid, Giacomo, ends up popping up, and it's because he's the one, they were doing that little seance, and then they were bringing up Salo's like mom being dead. It's like, oh, she killed herself. I'm like, that's kind of a dick thing that they're just like casually bringing that up. It's like, oh, maybe it's your mom. It's like, why would you say some shit like that? I mean, kids are assholes. But the fact is that it turns out to be Giacomo. I'm probably butchering his name. I kept hearing it over and over again, but I'm sure I'm still butchering it. But and now it's like, okay, so is that really him, or is it the demons pretending to be him just to kind of screw with everything? Well, it turns out it might not necessarily be once again, we don't know the full scale of everything, because all of a sudden, lights, it goes pure dark, boom, Salo's gone, everyone's looking for her. The fact of the matter is, Richie and his friends seem like super suspicious, because it's like, oh, even the police are like, hey, if something happened, it'd be better if you tell us. It's like, literally nothing happened. We did a seance, she disappeared, we have no idea where she is. And obviously, like, it's like, well, especially Richie, because Richie's kind of, I think, amongst the group, he's like the biggest screw up. So I think they're less inclined to listen to him in that regard. But yeah, obviously, Elena gets close to one of the kids, and because one of the other friends, she got a message from Salo, and then even being like, oh, like, you have to do the Ouija thing again if you want to bring me back. So they gathered to do it. Elena went with them this time. But obviously, they're contacting Elena. They want to talk to her. And then it's like, oh yeah, like it must be. And once again, teenagers being shitty. Well, I guess they're teenagers. They're kind of kids and everything, I think. But one of them was like, oh yeah, like if you're anything like what my mom says about you. And it's like, well, what did your mom say about me? She's like, that your husband left you. I'm like, once again, why are you being an asshole, kid? she's here trying to help your situation, but I guess in their mind, it's like you're actually impeding our situation. Like, either you're here helping us. It's like, you're a little too calm about, like, all right, we're going to do this again. I guess it's like, well, the justification is, hey, we're getting our friend back, so that's all that matters. Because one of the dudes is like, hey, if your friend's not going to help out, tell her to get the fuck out of here. It's like, really? You punk kids don't know what you're doing, and she's like the one adult. I don't know. So, but obviously it's like, oh, we want the coin is what this is all about. And then, like, Elena falls back, and then she, like, cause, then all of a sudden, like, the people, like, church people, I don't know what I guess, looks like they might be, like, I don't know, archbishops or something like that, maybe. I don't know. So it now shows that it's like, so they're the ones behind this. So that's what I was wondering. Is this some, like, rogue agency within the, like, church? Or is these, like, church members that have been possessed or something, like, you know, because obviously they're dabbling in some, like, magic because they're able to contact people and do what they did. But then Salo returns and it's like, oh, she isn't talking. I'm like, oh, she's possessed now, maybe? And so now that begs the question, like, is there actual demon? Well, you would assume there is demon possession because, like, the coin comes from hell and stuff like that. So we would assume Carmen was possessed, but maybe that's why I'm like, I don't know. Like I said, it's because, especially because of that opening, it seems like it definitely has two different sides. There's the demons, and there's this cabal or group that's trying to collect the coins as well. I mean, maybe the demons are kind of doing that, but maybe they're doing their own thing. But it shows you that they're not the good guys to either the church people, because they're driving Salo mad and making her, like, do all this for the sake of the coin. Because obviously she didn't come back normal, because she's like, oh, like, well, I guess because they're still under the impression that he has the coin. So I guess it seems like on some level you can sense the coin. Like, I think if you have enough, maybe, like, there's like a certain resonance later, because later on Salo was playing the piano and, like, she strikes a certain key and she's looking in the direction the coin is. So it's like, I think maybe it has a certain, like, frequency to it. Like, I don't. That's the thing. That I keep saying that everywhere I go throughout this. I don't know. But, like, it turns out, like, Salo, it's, like, able to tell people are going to die. Like, she walks up to a man and is like, I'm sorry, sir. He's like, for what? And she's like, you're going to die tonight. The home dude literally dies an hour later. And it's like, yeah, that's not creepy as shit. Her friends try to be like, no, I'm fine. Like, I'm not scared of you. But it's like, oh. And Salo talks about, like, nothing's been right since she's been back from wherever it was, the other side or whatever. Whereas now she's able to see, like, an aura around people. Blue means you're okay. Apparently, kids have, like, a white aura. I guess that means it's supposed to be, like, they're so early in their lives. Like, they're still kind of that pureness of life, I guess. And it's still such a new life. Blue means, I guess, you're just generally in a good space. Red, I guess, means you're near death, but when red fades into black, it means you're super near death. Which immediately my brain started thinking of, like, Shinigami eyes from Death Note. I mean, obviously you can't see a literal time limit, but I guess the aura kind of represents that to a certain extent. So it's just color instead of an actual number. But I guess it still gives you a gist of a time frame to a certain extent. So I guess it is very similar to the Shinigami eyes to a certain extent. But regardless, then she also sees, like, another dude is dying, and her friend calls Elena. It's like, yeah, this guy's going to die. It's like, no, don't worry about it. You're overthinking things. And home dude immediately dies afterwards. And it's like, and her friend, the girl, feels bad because she's like, we should have told him. Like, aren't we guilty because we knew he was going to die? But Elena was trying to tell her, like, no. And obviously for her, Elena's trying to, like, she's going crazy about this. Paco's wife is telling her, like, do not get further involved in this. It's like, because obviously for her, it's like, basically, let's get him out of town. We need to get him fired. But Paco's like, so I'm supposed to bring this to somebody? Like, okay, unless I have proof, or just they're not going to really listen to us. Like, what has he necessarily done? It's like, well, the fact is, ever since he came to town, it's been shit. You know, I also have to fix something I said last episode. I thought, like, in between the whole Giacomo situation, that was like a year ago. I think it has been years that he had been in town for a year, which is interesting that he's been in town for a year, but this is only happening now. But I guess it took that long for them to track him down. Or maybe it doesn't seem like there's been anything before now. Like, what happened last episode seemed to be the first time, like, stuff is really kicked off, maybe. I mean, we don't know how many coins are just out there in circulation in the sense of like, well, we know the church or whoever has one at the very least, but I mean, no telling how many they've collected. But I mean, I'm sure every one of them counts. It's a whole thing we're going to get into soon enough. But you have Father Manuel like still like denying everything, still being like, oh, you're crazy, I have no idea what you're talking about, you're making it seem like everything is like something supernatural or demonic or something like that. But obviously for Elena, it's like you are BSing. Like the fact is the kids got the name now, like this whole thing with Salo, because apparently, you know, when Salo wasn't talking, the one thing she wanted to do was have a confession, and obviously he, you know, Paco was asking about it. You know, Manuel was like, you know, secrets of confession and stuff like that. It's like, man has so many secrets, and because of that, because he keeps so much stuff close to the vest, like so many people are dying. And it's like, how long are you going to continue going down this route? Like, because it was even interesting because it was like, if you don't do this, they're going to punish, they're going to come after, destroy this town and everyone you love, which I thought was interesting. That's something we haven't dived into. Like, does he have family? Does he have kids? Does he have someone that he loves? Like, what does that necessarily mean? I wouldn't say he loves anyone in town, but I mean, maybe he does care for these people in that regard, and that's what it meant. Or maybe I'm assuming that was about something else. But like, Salo tried to kill herself because she was like, you didn't do what you're supposed to, and now they're trying to punish me for it. And it's like, he was supposed to die that night. She showed up at his place, cut off her finger, and it's like, oh, you want to call the cops? You go ahead and do that, and I'm going to tell them you did this. So, like, let's find that coin. She does the Joker thing, cuts her face. I'm like, because it stays. They make a point to keep showing you that, because I don't know, like, I don't watch enough horror stuff, so especially something like that, I'm sure that's kind of like, I'm sure that's classified as like body horror, but just like, especially because the thing is, you can see her teeth through it too, and it's like, dude, it's nerve-wracking. And so they go looking for the coin, break into Elena's place. Elena shows up with okay, and it's like, oh, and she's like, oh, like, Salo's like, yeah, he did this to me. Roque attacks him. Salo stabs home dude, and it's like, they're here, and we see like the outlines of the that group, and you know, and the way Manuel's talking, it sounds like he's like, I am with them, because she's like, you're just trying to use me. He's like, yes, I am. The fact is, you're just some stupid adolescent girl, because it's like, what did they do? Did they promise you that you have your mom back? It's like, your mom's dead. They can't do anything about that. Your mom killed herself because she had an incurable disease, and she didn't want you to see her suffer. So, because sadly, you know, her mom killed herself in front of her, you know, so. But it's like she blames herself. It's like, it wasn't because of you. Your mom loved you. Like, you're letting them get in your head. Like, the only thing you can do is block them out. And then all of a sudden, she raises her hands. Freaking hole gets ripped into the roof. And you're like, okay. And all three of them are getting sucked up. Roque gets sucked up in it. I'm like, oh. I was like, well, he's just going to disappear, isn't he? And, you know, Manuel's like, focus on your mom. And then, like, Elena has the coin because she was going to give the coin away. But, like, Manuel was just like, no, don't. Because, you know, maybe it's because it's like, you give them the coin, it's the end of everything. This is going to be the apocalypse level type of shit. Or maybe it's just like, if you do that, we're all dead. They're just going to destroy this town and kill us anyway. But then it's like, the coin is in her hand and, like, it starts, like, glowing. And obviously we can see through her hand. So I'm like, what does the coins necessarily do? I assume they have power, but maybe individually they don't have as much power. Maybe you have to bring them all together to have the ultimate power. But maybe like each one doesn't have I mean, there's something to it. Maybe it was resonating, or maybe that was it trying to be sucked out of her. I don't know. But luckily, Solo was able to like come back to her senses. Luckily, Roque is he's okay. I mean, luckily, because I thought like, oh man, you got flown into the sky, you came crashing down, but it seems like he's okay. I guess it's just, it ripped him up and then threw him down. I thought it was like, okay, so how are we going to explain the giant hole on the roof? Oh, the moment everything was done, it fixed. I was like, okay, so that's definitely not going to help anyone's cause, because it's just going to be like, yeah, you come off looking super crazy, because you definitely can't explain that, because it's like, oh, there was a swirling vortex and like roof got, what the hell are you talking about, lady? Your roof is fine, you know? So it's like, there's no proof of everything. You just come off, once again, looking nuts and crazy. So there's no working out, luckily, like, home dude, I guess he just, like, got flown into the air and thrown back down, but not to, like, a high enough, because I thought, like, oh, man, he's definitely dead. I thought, like, they shot him up from great, great heights, and he came crashing down and, like, broke every bone in his body type of thing, but luckily, he's okay. But, and luckily, the knife hit his ribs, so it didn't go to, like, his lungs or anything, so things worked out in that regard. We see Solo, it seems like because of everything, it seems like they've let her go. It's like, well, you've done what you're supposed to. Or maybe she was able to kind of block them out. And it's like, well, once they lose control of you, or maybe it's like she served her purpose. It's like, well, beyond this, you're useless to us because he'll be on guard towards you. This has garnered too much attention. This isn't like, which begs the question, does she still have the ability? Or was that something from them? Maybe it's like, maybe her soul was pulled over to the other side and coming back. And once you kind of crossed over and come back, it changes the way you've been experiencing the other side while being alive. Maybe it does that to you. But it's like, does she still have that after everything? Or when all this is said and done, it was taken from her because it mainly came from them kind of bestowing it upon her because of what they did? Or maybe they just straight up gave her that ability. I don't know. So, is she going to be just a normal teenager from now on? I mean, obviously people in town are just going to look at her crazy like anyway. But I mean, even then, it's just like, can't really explain everything. Because now it's going to be like, Manuel is definitely giving his statement about like, yeah, the kids must have, blah, blah, blah. She wasn't in the right state of mind. So like, obviously avoiding all the supernatural talk. And obviously Paco and Elena are like, yeah, we know it's BS. But like, Paco's like, I don't want you to leave town. I want you to stay here, Obviously, it's something there, but he's also married, so I'm sure, plus the whole being mirror thing, like, I'm sure he's fighting that, but there's definitely something there. His wife is definitely picking up on it, because it's like, why do you keep getting involved with this woman? You literally got super hurt and almost died last time because of her, and yet every time, that woman brings nothing but death kind of around her, and yet every time you make an excuse to be around her to kind of go help her with whatever she's doing, so I'm sure that's going to continue to be an issue going forward, but now, Elena was almost like, I wish I'd given him the coin. And obviously for Paco, it's like, neither you nor me should leave the town. Because like she was telling Paco to leave, but he was like, I can't, too many obligations, too many people he cares about here, too many responsibilities. But it's like, if anything, he should be one leaving. So I think he's going to follow his wife's advice and try and get Manuel like removed from their town, like call up some people from the church to be like, yeah, things aren't working out with the father. Why? He's going to have to probably come up with some excuses, but it is definitely going to be like, things just haven't been right in town since he's been here. So, but then we also see Antonio, and he's talking to one of the shadows, and it's like, oh, don't worry, I'll take care of him from here on out, or something like that. And it's like, it'll be Judas's time. So I'm like, okay. So this is some like Judas cult, I guess. I mean, it makes sense. Once again, Judas, 30 pieces of silver. It makes sense, but I guess this is some cult of his that's trying to bring them all together, like in his name or something like that. For what purpose? Maybe it's, I don't know. Maybe it's like people descended from his lineage, or like I said, maybe it's just like just a cult or whatever following him. Which I think is interesting because, I mean, considering Judas betrayed Jesus, like, for them to be potentially holy men, being in a group dedicated to him. Maybe this is about collecting 30 pieces and resurrecting him to be this great and almighty power. I don't know. I'm sorry. I keep saying that over and over again. I just don't know. But I find it fascinating. I'm interested to, find out, to understand everything on why Manuel, it seems like he's doing stuff while at the same time not doing anything. That's what's so confusing. It's like, once again, there's just so much about him that's still a mystery about, like, so much and why you're not doing anything about it. Like, there's been incident after you and this coin, yet you're still staying here. Why? I feel like I guess it's like, well, there's no point in running because maybe he's planning on making his stand here. Why? Maybe there's a reason behind all of it. Hopefully we'll find out soon enough. But I'm interested to see where things kind of go from here. So many damn questions. Hopefully we get answers to all of it. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.